This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, welcome to the show. So we're going to do things a little different today. Start casual conversations off with myself as the introductory personnel. And I wanted to talk about concealed lintels today. Our group wants to talk about concealed lintels. And so what are they? So essentially, concealed lintel is a support system for masonry for any spans or arches. And it's something our company does a very good job of providing and designing and providing solutions for. And I wanted to start out with an example of a project that we're currently working on right now. There we go. Just to give the audience an idea of some things that are coming down the pipe. So can everybody see that first and foremost? Is that Barrow Street? Good. Okay. So right now, Shay's working on a project in New York on Barrow Street. That is, I think, a really good example of what can be done with concealed lintel systems. And you know, a lot of people may think of a concealed lintel system as a structural member and a single arch or a single span, but the possibilities are actually quite broad for this type of a product. And this particular design is making use of concealed lintel supports at every floor level on this particular facade. And what it's actually doing is it's eliminating the need for shelf angle protrusions to create a really unique appearance that it's irregular and broken up, but at the same time it is very uniform. And so the concept is, I think, is, you know, we have a design now that's achievable, has a lot of elegance to it. So you know, that I think is really neat to look at and to show that the concealed lintel system can do more than one particular span, one at a time. We can do all types of things and create this really unique design. So that's something we're working on currently. And with that, I am going to pass presentation over to Linda.
Okay, so let's start by showing you a video. I love how this really tells the story.
Installation begins by placing temporary shoring directly below the and the placement of wooden formwork for the arch. Place the prefabricated arch slides according to the supplied layout drawings. Begin constructing the brick arch as shown until the first plate location is reached. Fill the brick cores, which will receive reinforcing rods, with mortar and apply mortar head joints to units in place. Slide a brick plate into position. Free butter and apply the next course of brick units. Fill the brick cores with mortar and apply the next mortar head joint to the units in place. Repeat the process for the next two courses of brick. Because we custom design, engineer, and fabricate each concealed lintel system, refer to the supplied shop drawings for specific installation information. Slide another brick plate into position. Insert pencil rods through the holes in the brick plate and slide them so they reach the end of the lintel. Repeat the process by laying two courses of brick at a time, installing the brick plate and inserting pencil rods. The system is customizable to accommodate virtually any earth or flat part. Pencil rods should be installed as shown, creating an 8-inch minimum overlap. Once the lintel is complete, install the remaining brick formwork to complete the installation. Keep the formwork in place for a minimum of 28 days to allow the mortar to reach its full compressive strength. For more videos and information, visit HTTP.
Okay, so isn't that cool? I was blown away when I first saw this. Really what you're going to need is when you've got any of these openings, you'll select the brick that you have, and the system is entirely engineered by our engineers in-house based on the brick holes in the brick that you select of how those rods are going to go through there. And so you can be flat or it can be arched. It can get surface mounted. There's a lot of different ways that we can do this, but one of the main questions that we get is, why would we use this? And, you know, Mark alluded to different ways, but one of my favorite ways is just talking about the maintenance side of things. Like a lot of these openings, you're traditionally either having a loose lintel or something that's going to need to be painted or just left exposed. And what this allows you to do is basically have that fully encapsulated. You never have to think about that opening ever again, or any of that maintenance item that would have for you, but also giving this aesthetic of just like your brickwork there that's beautiful, without worrying about the workmanship of trying to get somebody to do this and not make a mess of it, if you will. So it kind of feels like this almost like a color by number, but like all the pieces of how to do this comes with that concealed lintel package directly to your installer. It's a really cool situation. Jason, I kind of want to throw this to you for a second. One of the questions that I had asked of me at one of my first trade shows that I did was, how does this impact the wall around it? Like if I've got continuous insulation in this cavity around, like, and then I go to these openings that we just looked at, how does that work in a building? Am I explaining that correctly?
Yeah, so are you kind of speaking like a surface mount and a veneer application?
Yeah.
Okay, so realistically, there's going to be some attachment points to the substrate. They are going to be minimal. They're going to be spaced, and they're going to be a thinner material. So, I mean, depending on the design, your air vapor barrier is going to be able to be installed, and the bracketry is going to connect to the substrate at minimal, I would say a fin style bracket, to where that continuous insulation can detail around it. So it's real similar in the offset shelf angle theory, to where instead of having a lintel bearing on the sides of an opening with continuous contact to that backup, it's going to be just specialized brackets that's going to actually allow more continuous insulation, less detailing, and more of a continuous weather barrier behind there. And ultimately, you get a brick soffit underneath that window. Like, that's exciting to me. Like, think about the aesthetics and the options for brick soffits and entranceways, where maybe a doorway is recessed back into the building a ways, to where, you know, you have masonry returns, but you're also, in theory, can have a masonry ceiling, that brick soffit, and no maintenance, no painting, you know. So
in terms of the maintenance, it's something very common in your garages at your house, your windows. You can go look if the house is, you know, 10, 15 years old. Go look at the bottom of that loose lintel. It's almost every one of them are going to have rust there. In fact, it's a growing chore that you're seeing a lot of contractors specialize in replacing lintels on houses, because, and Jason, you can explain this, as that lintel begins to rust, it can shift, and as it shifts, you can your brick will start to, as it deteriorates, your brick will start to buckle, and as it buckles, you're going to have cracks. You're going to have a lot of different things that are affected just by the deterioration of that loose lintel that is exposed. With the concealed lintel, like you're saying, there is no maintenance for that. It's inside the wall. It's not gonna buckle or rust.
And one thing I want to say in regards to the maintenance aspect, in New York, it's required that these lintels, you know, the old system of lintels, be inspected, I believe, every 5 years. So if the design community and the mason contractors kind of work together and insert one of these concealed lintels into their designs, it basically alleviates that inspection period. So if you think about it, you're not having to put up scaffolding every 5 years to go repaint, you know, maybe replace, derust, whatever you have to do. So the labor costs actually decrease with the installation process, and the maintenance costs virtually go to zero when you use one of these concealed lintels. Another thing that I really like about them from the aesthetic side is that it kind of bridges the design community and the mason contractors. One, because we can actually engineer these, you know, to keep the architecture or the architect's vision of how he wants the building to look, because we can basically incorporate his aesthetic designs into our system, and then it allows for an easier installation where Linda touched on, where the mason doesn't have really the opportunity to leave a mess, to mess anything up. So I feel like it's really a way to bridge the gap between that design community and the mason contractor community.
Can we just, I have a question, Jason. Can you tell us what a brick soffit is exactly again? You're really good at explaining that.
Well, you know, I just think about like this, take the eaves of a residential style standard home, for example. You know, you have your soffit up there, your eaves project out past the side of your house. And I think for me, when I think of soffit, the first thing that comes on mind is just some corrugated metal with some vents in it, you know, that's going to flap in the wind and make noise. But for that to return and you to be able to look up and see the wall, turn the plane, and then return back into the building with masonry basically suspended and, you know, structurally suspended. And I don't know, it's pretty cool.
So that's a brick soffit.
Yeah, I mean, that term can go, you know, it can be a full ceilings. Like I just take entranceways, for example. That's me, you know, you see brick returns, you see the brick wall, and then you walk in and look up, and then there's been just something shoved up in there to fill the hole. It's usually some stud work, maybe some exterior rated sheetrock that's been finished and painted, or maybe some brake metal or something. But why lose the quality of the aesthetics of that to go to that? Because you can still put lighting in it, you can still put just about any type of feature you want in it, but just to continue that masonry at a horizontal surface suspended.
So the other thing that I feel like happens, and you guys can correct me if it's not what you see in your markets, because I'm here in the Midwest, but I think often one of the things I love about masonry is the ability for it to really do anything that you want to do. It can turn any corner, it can be on any angle. You really have this opportunity to design without any limitations on what you want to do. Now, the problem with this is that I think oftentimes we feel like we have the freedom to design in a way that is innovative or different or fun, but we feel held back on if our labor in our area can do what we design in our heads or how we want it to look. And so what I've seen happen is we have these great ideas of something that is this beautiful building and has this unique feature, design element, and maybe you want to incorporate this very cool arch, or maybe you want to, you know, hang some of this brick off in a flat way and kind of protrude out, kind of what Jason's talking about. But we don't do that because the risk of that not getting done well tells us I'd rather do simple and have it done well because my labor can do it than try to reach for the stars over here and have it go horribly wrong because they couldn't do it and then it looks bad on my design. And so I think this does, at least from my perspective, is it allows you to bring that creativity back into your design with a little bit of confidence in knowing that you're going to have something that your installers can do and do well, and that you can get the desired look that you want without feeling like I can't, because oftentimes you as a designer, you don't get to control who does your building. You're kind of leaving it up to chance. And so this really gives you that extra piece of confidence that I think is needed from the design side.
Right, and I think we had the discussion yesterday, Linda, that, you know, mason contractors today, they aren't being handed down the torch, so to say, or pass the torch, so to say, and those old techniques to make these beautiful arches. So this is an opportunity for, like you said, to kind of bring that creativity back in, and at the same time kind of alleviate the stresses of it not kind of performing or looking the way it's designed to be.
Any final thoughts? Mark, Robin?
I want a concealed lintel soffit on my front porch.
Yeah,
I have
right?
to take
So,
all the soffit off my house now and build it out of masonry.
Okay, I like it. So think about it. Any opening that you've got, window headers, above doors, above openings, anything that you've got that to span, we can engineer that to different lengths. We can make that work. Our engineers can do any conceptual designs for you. If you want to talk some budget stuff, we can throw that stuff out. But really what's needed is you've got to pick your brick before we can design the system to it, because it has to go through those holes in that video if you didn't see. So if you've got an opportunity that you want to talk through this, we would love to talk more individually with you. And with that, we'll sign off.